So currently, uh, for those of you that are just joining, thank you very much. Um, I'm Dr. Karen Hardin. I'm serving as the president for the Maricopa County Branch NAACP. Um, and the main focus of the NAACP, for those of you that may need a little more familiarity with the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, the main focus of our organization is to eliminate discrimination and make everything an equal playing ground for everyone. And so to, education is one of our pillars. The NAACP believes in open access and free access, equal access to quality education for everyone. As far as update on our branch, right now we are in the middle of working on our Freedom Fund dinner. And it's called our Freedom Fund dinner and our community awards ceremony. We are highlighting different people in the community for their outstanding accomplishments. And so today, we're going to focus today's community meeting. We invite community meetings and our general body, the general NAACP body, to join us in meaningful conversations that meaningful conversations that help educate the public on issues related to eliminating racism, reducing poverty, and having, a fair and equal playing ground for everyone. Education, we know, can be an equalizer. We have two esteemed guests today to talk with us. Let me move this over. We have Miss Justine Parnell, who is a doctoral student and studying education, as well as we have Dr. Michael Butts. And today our discussion, excuse me, I'm struggling with congestion and a cold, so I apologize for the interruption in my speech. Today we want to focus on equal opportunities to education and what is happening to our youth, in the education system, mainly our private schools and our charter schools. And as we all know, on the call, students are still rebounding, rebounding from the learning loss that they experienced during COVID. Uh, I'm sure all of us on the call, we understand how the disproportionate access to technology affected low-income students. And so we want to dive into this ideal also of ESAs and the voucher system, and how do we think is that an advantage or is it a disadvantage to the majority of the uh, youngsters in our community? So let's start our discussion with Miss Miss Justine, Dr. Justine soon to be. If you would introduce yourself briefly, Dr. Butts, if you would introduce yourself briefly, and then the first question is, what is your opinion about the ESA program? And if each one of you would address that, and maybe we'll have your opinions, and then we can try to open it up to questions from our audience toward the end of the hour. Okay? Dr. Justine Dubie.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. So I am at the Black Family Health and Wellness Expo. So forgive me, there's gonna be a little music in the background. They're partying over there. But I'm so glad to be here. I'm a ASU doctoral student. I'm actually a doctoral candidate because that means I passed my comprehensive exams and I'm on my way doing my dissertation. But I am also the state conference education chair, and I am the East Valley Youth Advisor. I've been an educator for over 12 years. I'm an early childhood special educator. And so To answer that question, like what is my opinion? I feel that ESAs overall are harmful to Black students in our schools. One, just like for me as a special educator, I know the history of ESAs began in special education for students that weren't able to attend school for like health reasons or disability reasons. They were given the opportunity to still get services in home. And then when that expanded to like the public, it really kind of just for me, number one, drains public education funding. And I know the number one thing I hear when people try to like rebuttal that comment is that, oh, well, it's my money, I pay taxes, my kid gets to go where I want them to go. Well, I always remind them that my job is actually my purpose isn't just for one student, it's for all students. And so when we talk about how Black students are actually disproportionately enrolled in public schools. And disproportionately just means overwhelming, the large majority attend public schools still. So if we're talking about just a select few students or a personal story of just one person, then you're only caring about your own child or this select group of students that tend to go to this micro school or that go to the private school. Overall, it takes money away. And I think for me, the number one thing about just taking the money away is that families that would normally already be paying for private school are now able to drain that fund as well. So if they were already going to pay for private school, now they're getting public funding that which they wouldn't have before. Now they get to access that funding to put their kids in private schools. Same with parents that were already going to homeschool their students. They were already going to do that anyways. If the student was already a basketball player or in a specific sport where they were competitive and traveling so much that school was not, it wasn't able to be accessed regularly. So then that way they would be able to be like, oh, okay, I'm going to now homeschool my child. Well, now they get to also access public funding, which overall drains our resources. I think that's my number one reason of why I don't like ESAs. I think also like we're thinking about the rights of all students. There isn't any type of for those private schools that people are choosing to go to, they don't have to follow the same civil rights they don't have the same civil rights protections when they attend those schools. Same with the micro schools. So overall, there's just less protections and less oversight.
Okay. Could, for those who are unaware or need a little refresher, can we explain what the ESAs are and how they work, Dr. Butts? And then introduce yourself as if you don't mind, please.
Sure, sure. Thank you for having me. Hi, I'm Dr. Butts, Michael Butts here. I am a Roosevelt Elementary School Board member, and I'm a 10-year educator. The first 5 of those years were spent teaching in the classroom. These last 5 years, I've been an administrator in 2 different school districts, elementary school district, which is called Osborne School District, and then a high school district, which is Agua Fria Union High School District. And so it gave me a lot of experiences with number one, ESA vouchers, but ultimately school funding, dealing with school funding. And so much of what soon-to-be Dr. Parnell said is along the lines of what I'm thinking. I just kind of want to add a little bit of twist to it. But before I do that, I'll kind of explain what, like you said, the ESA voucher. So Empowerment Scholarship Accounts is a special funding source that allows parents to utilize tax dollars, public tax dollars, for their kid to go to a private school. And so a lot of private schools will take this particular voucher from this parent and use it as a way to offset the entire school year tuition, and they pay additional money as well to supplement the tuition for the school year for that particular school, that student that's going to a private school. It most of the time it does not cover the entire tuition. So you have to have some money already to utilize with the voucher. And when you look at the demographics, like Ms. Parnell said, most of the families that are taking advantage of this empowerment scholarship account voucher, they are already in well-to-do zip codes, or they already have a nice income, and they're above the poverty line, right? And so that's problematic for a few reasons. But that essentially is one way that the empowerment scholarship account is used. Another way it's used is parents are allowed to take these vouchers and stockpile it and save it into an account and utilize for tuition for college or community college. And so that money is typically sitting there while the kid is a high school student or a K through 12 student. Okay, so those are tax dollars that are sitting there not being utilized. And the other challenge with this particular program is that, as you can see in front of me, I'm holding a debit card. Parents get a debit card to swipe to the expenses for this voucher program. And so that's another problem that I see with the program, because working on a school board and working in schools, anytime, especially as administrator, when we want to spend tax dollars, we have a PAR that we create. That PAR goes through several people, several departments within the school district. We have several different signatures on that particular paperwork to spend money. And so every dime is accounted for in public schools. But private schools can simply, when I say private schools, parents can simply take that debit card and swipe and automatically get approval of purchases without any type of scrutiny or guardrails or signature requirements. So it creates a huge problem, right? And so that's an explanation of how that works. I want to digress a second and talk about how it impacts, I believe, our students, and most importantly, our students from our community. One is when you have a large amount of tax dollars coming out of public schools, you will see a deficit, and districts will have a challenge trying to balance the budget, and they will have to look at how to balance their budget. And some of those strategies that they use will be to close schools. How does that impact our kids? When you close a school, most of the time the kids are losing their friends, right? They're no longer in the same class with them. Sometimes the students themselves, the individual student, has to change and go to a different school. And sometimes the classrooms, when they're reshuffled, sometimes the classrooms are growing in population. So you might be put in a classroom where there's more kids in that class now. Okay. The second thing I think it does for our students in our community is that, it causes school districts to lose teachers, have to hire new teachers, lose counselors, have to hire new counselors, and lose admin and have to hire new admin. And what that does and how that impacts kids is relationships, right? These kids are spending 6 to 7 hours on campus every day, Monday through Friday, and they are building these really robust, valuable, strong relationships with staffs on campus. And when that gets disrupted, they have to find a new person on campus that's going to be that one advocate for their life and help them be able to navigate their educational environment. Third, when we talk about the ESA vouchers and how they negatively impact public schools, when I'm out there talking to the community, I came across one particular family that they expressed their frustration with one of the programs of their school district closing. Okay, because money is coming out of our public schools in such a rapid fashion, their school, if the school district opts not to close the school, they certainly are doing things like closing programs. Okay, so and if they close a program, this particular family was telling me that they closed their program, their students' program, and the program was closed immediately. So it wasn't like they said the program, those kids that are in the program are grandfathered into the program. We're just not going to accept any new students, or we'll close it the next year. We're talking about immediate closure of school programs. Okay. And that's detrimental to students' idea of themselves and where they see themselves going in the future. So it's absolutely heartbreaking to see kids experience those types of transitional changes in their educational life. Fourth, I think impact is the reassignment of teachers. So if they don't lose teachers, teachers get reassigned to different roles, different areas to help the school district balance the budget. And when you have teachers moving around, you're going to obviously impact the relationships that those students have with those kids. Then you're also going to impact the program quality, because anytime a teacher has to switch role, obviously they're most of the time they're leaving their particular subject matter or program behind, and somebody else has to pick it up. And so when you have turnover within a program, it impacts the program quality. Okay. And I think I'll close with my fifth impact here, and that is from a IEP 504 type of impact, and that's where we see service delays. There were already service delays, and I think Ms. Parnell hinted to this. There were already service delays prior to ESA vouchers being put in place. Okay. Now with even less money, less funding for IEPs and 504s, and IEP is an individual education plan that's for kids who need additional support from an academic standpoint. 504s is for students who need more support from a medical standpoint or some other condition that's not related to academic or cognitive impacts. And so you see these service delays as an impact. The other issue here is that the parents that are using the vouchers, a lot of times in their handbook, they're encouraged to go to a public school and become evaluated. And during that evaluation process, the public school district is tasked with the responsibility of evaluating that particular kid. And to evaluate a kid for a 504 IEP is a long process. And there's a lot that goes on to it behind closed doors. There's a lot of evaluations, a lot of tests being taken, and it takes a lot of staff hours to conduct these evaluations. And so what you see a delay also from that standpoint in services being provided to the kids that are already in that school or school district, and the particular student that's being evaluated for the ESA voucher, they're not going to stay at that school. They're going to get evaluated by the staff at that school, but they're not going to stay there. They're going to leave after that evaluation and go to a private school. And so it creates unnecessary burdens on an already burdened system for psychological services such as IEP and 504 services. So with that, I'll close. Those are the ways I believe the ESA vouchers impact students of our community and schools and school districts in our particular state. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. If you have a question, just put it in the chat. And Miss Juanita, if you would help me monitor the chat, that'd be helpful. Miss Justine, can you speak to oversight? I think you mentioned oversight a little bit, right? Speak to what you feel needs to be done for oversight and micro schools and charter schools. And are there, both of you, are there advantages to the empowerment scholarship accounts?
So for me, like the oversight is like Dr. Butts had mentioned, like tracking the spending, right? When we're in a public school setting, there's a lot of signatures go through, and charter schools don't even have that level of oversight, right? They still have just like the principal could have a card and spend the money and kind of have to back up why she spent the money. But public schools have a lot more hoops they have to go to before they can spend money, right? They have a school board, they have a superintendent they have to go through. So if a principal wanted to do something with the school or a teacher wanted, there's lots of channels they have to go through to spend the money, and it has to be justified and be put in the budget in advance. Where the ESA scholarship, the scholarship money, you don't have to do any of that. The parents are just given $7,000 and they're able to spend that however they want on whatever they want. And so something that we've that's been in the news is like a new kitchen, ski trips, family like vacations, different materials if you're into certain like particular sports. So like if you're also taking classes, right? You can spend that money. Say it's like a PE class and you're now taking gymnastics. A lot of different ways that things are not being spent the way they should be for like a curriculum, right? They're not buying a specific curriculum. You don't have to buy a specific curriculum. You just have to prove why you bought what you bought. Or not even prove, just maybe make a note. Like I bought a kitchen because we're doing a cooking class, and I'm going to teach my kids how to cook, and it's scientific because we're going to like measure and have math and all these things. And it's not the same as when you're spending money in a public school. And I guess the difference for me, also coming again from that special education lens, that public schools are the best place to go to because they have so much oversight and because they have a governing board that operates like together within the community. And the thing about schools, like public schools, they're like a focal point of the community, right? Because most of the time you have to live in that community to attend that school, right? And when you're living in that community, it builds this sense of community. So then you should know the people on your school boards. You should know the people that are working at your schools. And that builds these like relationships. So when it comes to making change, those are the people you talk to. But when you're spending money independently, there's absolutely no one you have to consult with. You just spend the money and it's paid for. And I think also when I think about charter schools, as far as like education, they still have less oversight than a public school, but a lot of time they have high teacher turnover because they're paying teachers less most of the time. And they have high teacher turnover because they don't have to follow, there's no like teacher union or anything. There's no rules to follow when you're firing versus like a public school. So it's in a public school, it's a lot more channels you have to go through to fire a teacher. Same thing with your ESAs. Like you don't have there's a parent as a teacher, so there's no firing of that teacher. And overall, I just think there's less resources when it comes to a charter school versus a public school. And the reason why I say that is because um charter schools can hire teachers that are not as like they don't have their credentials, right? And so when you have teachers that don't have the credentials, they're not trained on how to bring in other resources into the school or even go on a field trip, right? Like a lot of times I notice being in charter schools, like they never go on field trips, they barely do anything. And it's like they don't know how to engage in the community. They don't know how to find what's around the community. A lot of the teachers don't live in the community. They're transporting to the community to teach. So I think all those things are play a different factor in like learning overall when you're comparing the three. I just feel like public schools is a community hub and we have to support our community hub. And again, majority of our kids go to public schools. And like Dr. Butts mentioned, like that's a loss of trust and relationship that is being built in the community. When a kid loses their school, that's traumatic. You know, there's so many schools closing down in like South Phoenix, and then I know Kyrene lost some schools. So that's happening in neighborhoods that were thriving and that were opening more schools. And now, because of all the charter schools and the ESAs, they're starting to close down.
Now, do I understand that a person can receive up to 7,000 per year, or is that 7,000 per empowerment scholarship?
That's like the minimum per year because it can go higher.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it can go depending on the student and like if they have an IEP, if they have a 504 plan, it can go. I've heard up to 15,000. I don't know, Dr. Butts, have you heard anything higher than 15,000?
I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I do know that some of that data is not as forthcoming as it should be to us in the general.
Mm.
So I would imagine there are higher numbers, yes.
Mhm.
I believe state education chair, you can correct me please here. I do believe the NAACP's position on vouchers, and I think it would generalize to these empowerment scholarship accounts, is anti-vouchers because of the inequitable way that it's distributed.
Mhm.
That, as you said, some folks who understand the process may get these empowerment scholarship accounts, get the vouchers, get the money, as Dr. Butts just said, maybe put that in some kind of savings account, draw interest on it. So they're making money on money that should be used for the education. And I think Dr. Parnell, you said you talked about the ideal that somebody might do upgrades or buy something in their kitchen and say that um, they are teaching cooking classes, right? Okay, so do either one of you see a benefit to the empowerment scholarship accounts and or any recommendations of what's the alternative to that? What should be done?
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to go first, Dr. Butts?
Sure, yeah, I'll take that first. So, to answer your question about the positives for empowerment scholarship accounts, and what I can speak to is that there are families that do have students with severe disabilities, um, that they have an IEP for or a 504. And, it would be great if I could say that public school districts and public schools get everything right when it comes to that population of students, and that every school is appropriate and the right environment for that student. And we know that's not true. We know that we can't say that, right? So, for those parents that do need that type of environment or a different type of environment than a general educational setting for that student, this is how this empowerment scholarship account can be perceived as a benefit, if we were to phrase it that way. Another way we could look at it as a benefit is that there are parents that do desire to homeschool their kids, and it's a good fit for their particular student. It's a good fit for their particular family, and they're able to utilize empowerment scholarship accounts for homeschooling their kids, and they are not buying uh, uh, lavish jewelry items or updating their kitchen through remodeling. They are solely being responsible with the money to positively impact the educational needs of their kiddo in a homeschool environment. Those can be seen as benefits to the empowerment scholarship account. And I say it that way because it is my belief, we don't need an empowerment scholarship account to meet the needs of those students that are homeschooled or have a severe disabilities in the general education setting, or that public school is not the best environment for that kiddo. We can simply appropriately fund education at a state level and meet the needs of all students, period, end of discussion. Those are my thoughts, and I'll turn it over to you, Ms. Parnell.
So can you repeat the question again one more time?
We were talking about, do you see any benefits to empowerment scholarships and or vouchers, the benefits to the community? And also, let me clarify here, um, the NAACP is not just talking about Black students. The NAACP's position is all people of color and low-income students, disadvantaged students. I think a misconception about the NAACP is that the NAACP only cares about Black folks.
Yeah.
And we all here on the call, I think, understand our history. But my understanding of the NAACP is it's any inequities, any disparities. So the question is, do you see an advantage to the empowerment scholarship accounts and or vouchers, in your opinion?
In my opinion, not at all. I know I heard Dr. Butts talk about like special education. Again, there's other ways to fund in-home education for those students without having this open, like to everyone ESAs funding. I think that overall, if we were going to have families that need to pay for personal or educational needs outside of a regular traditional school, I think schools have spaces for that. Like they have all day programs, most districts do, for students. And if for some reason it's that critical that they need in-home care, I know, and where I'm from in Minnesota, they would send a teacher from the district to your home. So that can still happen without the ESA money being spent or being an option. I think overall, I think one of the biggest things that over the last 2 years, I've had lots of conversations with people who want micro schools because they believe that our kids are not being taken care of in public schools, right? They believe that it's harmful. They believe that the reading scores are so low that there's no point. Our kids aren't even learning. And I would say it's a systemic issue, right? It goes back to allowing money to be draining the public schools. So then we decide to lessen the qualifications for teachers, right? Because the teachers who are qualified don't want to work in those environments. And so then they leave the field. I remember after COVID, so many of my friends who were teachers left because it was like, who can survive off of this income? Who can survive off of $50,000 a year? And that's not fair. I have a master's degree. I'm about to be a doctor. I've probably over 60, 70 credits past a master's. And I was offered a 55 or $53,000 contract as a special education teacher. So with that kind of money, no one can survive. So what happens is they I don't want to say dumb down, but they minimize the credentials, they minimize the teaching profession completely. Like, like what 30, 40 years ago, teachers were compared to nurses and doctors. They had this like they were iconic in that way, like we are professionals. And now this administration is even saying that educators are no longer professionals, right? Trump was attacking what was considered a professional degree, and teaching was one of them that he was taking away the idea that teaching is a professional degree because in our state, you only need a high school diploma and to be enrolled in a Rio Salado teacher prep program to become a teacher in these charter schools or in the micro schools. So to me, it's a huge systemic issue that just totally just kind of just killed the teaching profession and belittled the teaching profession. And I think that is the reason why so many people think that micro schools are the answers. I think that this one person who's an amazing teacher is going to now open up her own micro school and teach your kids. And one thing I think of when I think about that is socialization and the lack of resources, the lack of opportunity. Like schools still have after school sports. Schools still have after school clubs. One teacher can't manage everyone's desires so for an after school program and I'm going to tailor my lessons to these 5 students. That just takes away from what the socialization of what is like a traditional way of being socialized. And unless that's your choice now to be homeschooled in a collective space, then you don't need the ESA money. These teachers are now charging families the money to teach their children for a year. And $7,000 is not enough money to teach a child for a year if it's not yours and you want it as an income for yourself. So I look at it as very greedy when people are doing that. They're thinking that they're changing the system, that no one's gonna make a school off of ESA money and sustain it financially, because that's not what's happening. And so there's people that think that, like Black folks that think they're gonna start a micro school and save children. And it might work for 10 kids for a year, but it's not sustainable over time. So they've had this experience for 1 year, and what happens? They go back to the public schools or they go back to a charter school because that $7,000 a month for a micro school is not sustainable
Mhm.
financially.
Are either one of you familiar with reports on how much money has been, I'll say, unaccounted for in the empowerment scholarship account? And either one of you familiar with any kind of um, statistical breakout in terms of who is using the empowerment scholarship account, such as Latinos, Anglos, African Americans? Have you heard any research about who's using what ethnic group is using the majority of the money or any of the money? Are we familiar with, are there any, the statistics on African American families maybe that have benefited from the empowerment scholarship accounts?
I know that they have have investigations going on of maybe potentially 440 million of the unused ESA money that has been just sitting in accounts. Then there's another number of $622,000 classified as fraud. So we have over 400 million sitting in accounts. in our state, and then we have $622,000 as fraud. And from the last I remember, I know I had my good friend Christina Bustos during our state conference convention. She shared some information from SOS, and it is wealthy white families that are mostly using the Empowerment Scholarship.
Mhm. So we don't know any statistics on exactly the demographics use of the empowerment scholarships. Either one of you are not familiar with that. The one piece of information I understand about it is the large amount of money that's unaccountable, and that there's only maybe four people who do the oversight, and they are appointed folks, not voted folks. But I'm not familiar with any kind of demographic data on who is accessing the scholarships. I don't know. Dr. Butts, are you familiar with any statistics?
Sure. Dr. Hardin, what I could tell you is that there is built into certain statutes within our Constitution and policies that do require reporting for intergovernmental agencies that collaborate together, such as your state superintendent and your county superintendent. The county superintendents uh, need data about this, such as what you're talking about. These what we call student enrollment identification data that will basically help them manage their county budget. Because if you have a student that is in two different budgets and they're overlapping, then there's money that is being misappropriated or unaccounted for. And
Mhm.
so without this student enrollment identification, it's nearly impossible to make sure that there's no uh, um, student that is dipping into both buckets of money. And so a lot of these statistics are not available. They exist, but they are not uh, being publicly made available. And so that's a problem.
Any idea if we wanted to know, if someone wanted to know how, the percentage of or how many African American or Black families have received empowerment scholarship accounts, they would have to try to get that from the superintendent of public schools, or how would we obtain that data if we were interested in it?
I'd say that it should start at the state level, the auditor general, perhaps, or even the state superintendent.
Gotcha. Okay. Mhm.
And Dr. Hard,
Yes.
there are a couple of chat questions
Okay. Read
that
the top one.
one,
I
the
just
first,
answered the one on ESA accounts. We just talked about.
right.
Uh-huh.
And part of that question also is how do we know this is a problem in our community? Part of that first question you answered. And so I guess if you want to answer that, and then there's another question also. How do we know this is a problem in our community?
Sorry, I got disconnected, but I'm back.
Okay. Yeah.
And I just wanted to say that SOS does not have demographic information. I guess that is
Right.
not given, but they give out zip codes, and the number one zip code that uses the most ESAs is Paradise Valley.
Uh-huh. Okay. So that helps answer that question about, do we know the number of Black owned ESA accounts? We can make a generalization that however many Black families are in that particular zip code. And the other part of that question is, how do we know this is a problem in our community? So our community depends on how we define our community. But if we're talking about African American folks, each one of you, maybe Dr. Butts and Dr. Purnell, you can answer that if you want to. The question of how do we know this is a problem in our community? I would just comment on, I have cursorily heard reports of the large amounts of money that are really unaccounted for.
Hmm.
Uh, and and you just sort to me, I think a part of that answer is if the large amount of the money is identified in zip codes, uh, Paradise Valley zip code, I don't think that would impact if we're saying our community is South Phoenix or Central Phoenix or East Valley, whatever our community is. If it's not Paradise Valley, then the large amount of that money is not being, those scholarships are not being equally distributed. Maybe that's a generalization. It's not being equally distributed over different areas. I don't know. Would either one of you like to comment on that question of how do we know this is a problem in our community?
I think that we have a challenge with being able to identify that because a lot of this data is being protected at the state
Mm.
level, and but we do have, I think we do have an avenue that we could take, and this would be my suggestion for any uh, educational advocacy organizations, and that is last year there was a ruling that occurred here in Arizona that it was unconstitutional when we look at a public school funding case. And so if we were to lean into that particular case, I think that we could ultimately push that further to uncover what we're talking about as far as information that's in our communities and our areas, and even really kind of handling the issue of how the ESA vouchers are negatively impacting public schools.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Juanita.
And
There,
there is one other question in
yes,
there.
yes,
See
go
that?
ahead,
Okay.
please.
The other question is, it's what is the NAACP's education strategy for improving outcomes for Black students statewide? And does the NAACP have an option for Black families?
Mm,
I could take that question. So
thank you.
I think number one is the strategy has come from that as a NAACP as a group, right? So I think right now, as education chair, my biggest hurdle that I always say is getting all the education chairs together to make a strategy. I can advocate, and so my advocacy has mostly been in supporting public schools boards, and so that is something that I have talked about and that I'm continuing to go to. I started attending many of the school boards, and I'm working on developing like a Google form so that way people who attend school boards can report to the NAACP what is happening across the state so we know. But right now it feels like more of like a reactive strategy. We're more reactive. And so I'm trying to push forward to be more proactive. And so that way we're not just responding to what is being told to us, right? If I have a teacher who's fired, I get that email. If a student feels like they're being done wrong in a school, and I'm available to help support each of those branch education chairs. But I know that West Valley has a woman that has been doing pretty good, and I've emailed and corresponded with her when I needed to. And I know I've been talking to Dr. Harding from the Maricopa branch, but the East Valley, like they don't have one. Not every branch has an education chair. And I always like to remind everyone that education chairs should have an education committee. The more people that we have in this education committee, the more people can actually advocate and affect change, right? So that is something that I've been trying to work on and create more people to help support the advocacy space. I know lots of the chairs, their main like role in the NAACP is to host advocacy like events or be at or like join in events and table and give out information or host like talks like we're doing today. But to be more of an active agent in this in our state, we have to come together and create that space, right? So we're still in the space of creating more committees that come together. I know that my advocacy alone as the education chair for the state has been mostly on supporting the school boards. And so like I just wrote a grant with the build grant for Maricopa Youth Branch for a youth task force to help support school boards and attend more school board meetings and really get the information about where our community, where our students are attending, what school districts need our support. Because if people aren't emailing me, again, we're in this reactive state where, like, if I don't know about it because you didn't email me, I don't know about it. I can't attend every single school board in our Maricopa County, or even in the state, So does that answer your question? I know you want like a real thought out strategy, but I don't think NAACP as a state has that. I know that we're working on literacy legislation at the state conference level. So that is a proposal I just saw sent to me. So at the state conference level, we are writing legislation to propose for literacy at this moment.
And I know just adding to that as part of the educational agenda, with the state NACP, like you said, is trying to encourage more people to get involved. One strategy is trying to get more people involved in going to joining and going to board meetings.
Mhm.
Secondly, I know that different branches, and I'm probably also talking from a lens of Maricopa branch outcome. We're saying how are we improving the outcome? Well, one outcome is transition from high school to college. That would be, what's the data? What's the impact of trying to help African American students, like I said, make that transition from high school to college, to put themselves in a position where they can maybe command higher paying jobs, better quality of life. We've put quite a bit of dollars into scholarships for high school
Yes.
students to start taking college classes while they're already in high school. To thousands of dollars in that. That's one outcome. Encouraging students to make sure that they understand maybe that they have a better pathway of success if they have a college degree versus a high school diploma. To jointly together, the Maricopa branch with the state, we've been working on that, as well as on a state level. Several students have been exposed to uh, the benefits of HBCUs, attending HBCUs. So we have funded scholarships for Black students to go to HBCUs, because I believe the statistics there show that more Black students graduate from HBCUs than they do other colleges or universities. We've also been trying to educate our parents. Part of our educational strategy on a state level has been trying to educate parents about the Earn to Learn program, where
Mhm.
students can be scholarship to get up to 8 times uh, reimbursement on, not reimbursement, but embellishment on funds that they save while they're trying to go to school. So um, um, uh, I'm taking personal privilege to say
Yes.
the education committee is alive and well,
Yes.
doing
And
great
I
things.
always say that about Maricopa. I always say Maricopa
Well,
branch is one of the biggest,
but but
Maricopa
we but
County.
we've been working with the other, the state youth
Yes.
and college director under your
Hmm.
jurisdiction. So it's
Yes.
not just us. And education wise, the state conference took 10 youth to the national
15.
15.
15.
If we talk about strategies and success, state
Hmm.
conference in ACP took 15 students to AXO. And maybe you want to speak to AXO, Dr.
Yeah, I'm actually, that's why
Because
I'm here now at the health.
that was huge. And talk
Yeah.
about the winners that came
Yeah.
in. Yeah.
And that's why I'm here now. So I'm at an event now, right, out in the community, and as my NAACP hat.
Yeah.
But I am constantly promoting AXO for our youth, and I'm constantly recruiting for the youth advisor, because I feel that that's the biggest way. And when it comes to a lot of the work that I do is with in my role as the East Valley Youth Advisor. So I spend a lot of time in that capacity. But we did take 15 kids. 5 kids competed in AXO. We had orator, an essay writer, a poet, an artist, a painter, and then my East Valley president, Sasha, who won second place. as her business plan, which we will be hosting her conference from her business plan in April. But I want to say also that the strategy of the NAACP from the state level comes from each branch. That comes from our strategy is created not by me. And I always say, like, it's an overstep when I go to a branch and say, I want to do something. And that's what the thing says. I'm supposed to support. Now I can have an advocacy role and advocate like I am right now, I advocate against ESAs. I can work on legislation. But when it comes to the strategy of the state, it is actually the action plan of the state is created by all of the branches put together. That is how the action plan by the state is created per our bylaws and constitution that I've read, and that's what it says when I took this role. So I know a lot of times, like, there's an assumption that we have one, but it's created when we all come together. So the last time we created our action plan was in, I think, October, when I had a meeting. And I know, Dr. Harding, you weren't able to make that meeting, but other.
Oh, okay. She'll probably be back with us. And while we're waiting for her to sign back on, I want to give a shout out to our Vice President, Miss Pamela Cowan Burke, Miss Pamela Burke Cowan, who is our first Vice President and we're like kind of like tri-chairs for our education department for the Maricopa County Branch. And our strategy to improve outcomes has definitely been helping youth find scholarship dollars so that they can continue their education, whether that's, like I said, the high school student taking college readiness courses and or the continuing college students. So that's
Dr. Harden,
yes, ma'am.
first of all, thank you, Dr. Butts and Miss Parnell. This was a very informative meeting. My first love has always been special ed, which was my undergrad major. And so I have a lot of comments on that. But Dr. Harden and I have worked for over 20 years, and the stats on the students that we have helped to go on to four-year colleges is just so rewarding. And so we will continue to strive and work towards helping our students.
Right. Yep. Exactly. Yep. So, any closing comments, Dr. Butts and Dr. Parnell to be? We have about 5 more minutes, and I want to emphasize, please, Ms. Juanita, will you put our website in the chat? I would like to personally invite each one of you to attend our Freedom Fund Dinner and Community Awards program, April the 24th. April 24th. It will be at the Renaissance Hotel. It's Friday evening. You will love it. Our educational award honoree is going to be Miss Juanita. Tell me his name. Caplacio. I always butcher it up. We just went through our awards. Miss Juanita, you there?
Yes.
Oh.
What's that again? What's his name he's trying to think of?
Our education award winner.
Oh, okay. Hold on.
Devin. Okay. April 24th, please put it on your calendar. Go to our website. We would love to see everyone there. DePlacio, am I saying it correctly? Yeah. Back to what you were saying, Dr. Parnell, is being on these boards. And that's one of the reasons we're honoring him, is because he's on the West Valley Education Board out in the West Side. So any closing comments either one of you would like to? Go ahead. Okay. Dr. Butts, any closing comments about what we need to do to improve educational outcomes for Black students statewide?
Sure. I definitely enjoyed this conversation, and I don't fully know all of the resources you have at your disposal to help with this fight for public schools. But whatever resources you do have legally, I definitely encourage you to expend resources legally to fight for our kids in public schools. And with the case that we, just recently had here in Arizona, where it was ruled unconstitutional as far as our public school funding. So, with that being said, thank you for having me, and it was a pleasure talking with you all.
Thank you so much. Dr. Parnell, you might have segued into your other meeting already. So the
And I did put his name in the chat, Devin Del
Del
Palacio.
De Placio. See, I was forgetting the other D. Devin Del De Placio will be one of our community award recipients. So, as I said, we would love to have you go up on our website and join our Freedom Fund dinner. Thank everybody for attending. We will be back with you the fourth Saturday of next month at the same time, 1 o'clock. And wish everybody a very productive weekend. And thank you again for joining us. And thank you for the questions in our chat. That was really helpful to guide our discussion. So we appreciate everybody's involvement.
And I did want to say also, if anyone would like to be placed on our listserv, they could put their email, well, getting ready to shut down, or they can call our office and let us know. They would like to be placed on our listserv to receive any updates and upcoming events that we have. Thank you.
Great. Okay. Thank you very much. And hey, Mr. Steve, I think I owe you a call back, don't I? Where does the time go?
I was just thinking the same thing, especially when we're talking about supporting
Hey,
Black kids in schools.
put your number in the chat real quick, and I'm gonna put it right here. And I promise next week I'll give you a call back. How about that?
Deal.
Thank you,
Very good.
everybody. Have a great day.
All right. I didn't forget, just too many things on the.
No, I haven't been harassing you either, so I hear you.
All right.
Thank you.
Everyone,
Thank you,
have a
Dr.
great
Harden.
weekend. Okay. All right.
Thanks. See ya.
Bye bye, everyone.